Hello and welcome to the Rams Talk Podcast Preview Show. We are talking all things Exeter City, and this is recorded a little bit prematurely due to it being on Tuesday night. It's always very difficult to schedule these things in for Tuesday night fixtures, but I have a great guest with me to talk it all through. I've got Jon Beer, who's BBC Summariser for Exeter City, and he's also co-host of his own podcast. Jon, do you want to give yourself a little plug there, mate?
Yeah, if any of the Derby fans want to listen, it's the MyNewFootballClub Podcast. I host it with David L, who's a relatively well-known comedian in Afterlife and a few other things. But yeah, if any Derby fans fancy giving that a listen, go ahead.
Brilliant. We'll go follow that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can find them, and I'm sure it's a great listen. What we'll do, we'll talk through the season so far for Exeter. It's been quite stop-start, really, hasn't it? I mean, I've just looked at your last bit of form. It's not looking too good in the last few weeks, but then you did pick up at the start of the season. So it's been really, is inconsistent the best word for really?
Yeah, it's been challenging. It really has. It's one of those where we started the season, we were top for a number of weeks, and you start to really think to yourself, as an Exeter City fan, you can't really ever get too carried away. It's never something that we've been good at. Is being good. So for the first time in our history where we're actually sort of getting a little bit of success for us, it's quite just exciting to be on the journey. Doesn't really matter so long as we're sort of safe and competing. Although some City fans now would disagree, is a real success. And for a club of our size and the way we run ourselves, the ownership model being run by the fans, I think being wherever we are in League One, I try not to look very often, but wherever we are, I know it's a respectable place to be for the model, and it's but yeah, like you said, it's been a topsy-turvy season, and hopefully with players going back fit after the international break, we can really kick on and carry on how we started the season, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really isn't, obviously, when you look at the last few games, it doesn't look great. But when you look at the teams that you played Oxford, who are flying at the moment. You played Charlton, who are always consistent. Barnsley. You kind of look at those opposition. You kind of go, were we really expecting to get those wins or a positive result? And you might go, well, I'm not 1-0 defeat to Barnsley isn't too bad. I mean, probably the only one in there that you probably say that you maybe could have done better is Northampton. And that's probably it. What do you really put it down to? Is it, as you mentioned, a few players with coming back after the international break? Is it injuries that's really hampered you at the start of this season so far?
Yeah, we've had a terrible amount of injuries. I think, like I say, with a team of our size, where your budget's not that big, you have to prioritise quality over quantity. And unfortunately, when a few players start to drop out, you really do notice. We've had a lot of really influential players like. But Jack Aitchison's been out for a long time, James Scott, and we've just had a few injuries at really bad times. When people just start to come back fit, we're having more injuries, and we've been having to play 16-year-olds, youngsters, which is something we like to do at Exeter City. But maybe if they're not quite ready and being thrown in, it's not ideal. And like you said, that run of fixtures was difficult. We always knew it was going to be difficult, and on top of that, we had all those injuries. Like I said before, now that these players are coming back, and we've had that too, we were lucky enough to have 3 international call-ups. We managed to get a really good amount of fitness and recovery into those players from what I hear, and hopefully we'll be going into not only this weekend but Tuesday night as well with a really fresh squad.
Well, you mentioned there, I mean, obviously with the time we're recording, you've still got Saturday's game against Wigan back at home. Home crowds, a team also struggling as of late down there. I mean, is this a result that you could really try and get a positive spin on it? Or is Wigan, I mean, the name itself is there, but I mean, in terms of where the position is of the club and the team, bless them, it's a little bit more difficult. But I mean, is that a game where you can really try and get this form really going?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's important to say this is a little bit of a special fixture for our manager. Obviously, Gary Caldwell got Wigan promoted out of League One as champions, so there's a little bit of sort of tentativeness around the game, I think, this weekend. I think he said he wants them to do really well this season, but not against us, which I think is a fair remark. But no, like you said, I don't think they've been fantastic this season. I think there's obviously bigger issues than just on the pitch. And like you said, that's never nice to see. But like we know, I really fancy us against any team in this division with a full strength side. With some of the stuff we're playing at the start of the season, I really do fancy us. I think League One's very open this season. But to answer your question, yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity to get back to winning ways. And I think we need to sooner rather than later if we want to be one of those teams that's even in contention for one of those playoff spots.
I mean, when you look at Exeter City's team this season, I mean, your goals have been quite spread out. It's not really in that one player who's gone on a real scoring run. I mean, when you look at, for Derby fans to kind of pick out a couple of names, who would you say is a real threat to Derby and potentially Wigan at the weekend?
Yeah, I think if you're looking goal threat wise, I think it's one of the areas we've really lacked in this season. We've been really toothless at times, and it's sad to see because obviously we lost Sam Nombe late on in the window to Rotherham, and I think we all knew it was coming. I think everyone was a little bit tentative. You could see in the way he was playing that he was probably going to go. He wasn't giving the Sam Nombe usual amount of effort, which was up until the last couple of games of his time at Exeter City, pretty much always the one thing you were guaranteed from him. But yes, in terms of a goal scorer, I think you've got to look at Dimitri Mitchell. He's been on fire for us this season, so much so that I really wouldn't be surprised if someone comes in January for him, maybe a top-end League One side or maybe a lower Championship side. He's been superb, and just if it wasn't for him, I think there'd be quite a few games where we would be picking up 0 or only 1 point as opposed to 1 or 3, respectively. So Dimitri Mitchell probably our main goal for it, or our main danger man. But I think if Trevitt's back in the squad, if Ryan Trevitt's back in the squad and Tom Carroll's back in the squad, you're going to have a little bit of a match for you. Because I've been lucky enough to see Derby a couple of times this season. I watched a game against Burton away, and I thought you had some unbelievable. I mean, you have some unbelievable players. I don't think it's common knowledge, but Max Bird, I think is his name. That day was superb. It was unbelievable, and I think we've got sort of something similar, maybe not to the standard of Max Bird, but in Ryan Trevitt. Who's obviously on loan from Brentford, and he's been superb for us this season. Again, picked up a little injury, missed about 4 weeks, and the international break has just given him the chance to get back. But no, I think danger man Dimitri Mitchell, but a really strong midfield in Trevitt and Carroll. And to be fair, until what was a couple of weeks ago, a really strong defence as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at, just the last game against Barnsley, I'm just looking at a couple of the match stats here from no app in particular. But you had a real positive throughout the game. I mean, 13 shots against Barnsley is no mean feat, but it's that one on target, isn't it? It's that lack of real clinicalness. And I mean, Derby fans can relate to it. I mean, we've been the same. We've got 20 odd shots on goal, but maybe 2 or 3 on target. And that's where we're really lacking. It's that clinical edge. Is the Exeter game plan really kind of trying to dominate the game? I mean, playing, if I'm right in saying 3 at the back is the way that Exeter play. Is control and possession a way that you really want to have a philosophy and really want to play the game?
Yeah, it's such for us, for the first time ever, it's such an interesting question, because had you told me under Matt Taylor how we played or under Paul Tisdale how we played, I'd have been able to give you a straight answer. But having spoke to Gary Caldwell quite a few times and having a good relationship with him, I can truly and honestly tell you that his game plan and the way we play will completely depend on the opposition. He plays a different style every week. Maybe the formation is the same, but the way that we play is different, and it makes us unpredictable. I think the best example was last season against Barnsley, where the week before, can't remember who we played, but we had about 65% possession, completely dominated the game. And the following week against Barnsley had 20-30%. And he then spoke to him after that game at length, and he was saying that was on purpose. We'd set out to let them have the ball because Barnsley want to play against us how we want to play against them. So let's let them have the ball and then catch them. And we went on to win that game 3-1, probably our best performance under Gary Caldwell. And that's sort of what has kicked a lot of Exeter City fans into thinking, right, this is the right person for us, because that day he got it spot on, and since then he's been just improving us gradually, and we're playing such good football under him. But I think, given the way that you played against Burton, I think we'll probably be looking to give you more of the ball and trying to sit up and catch you quick. We've got really quick players on the break with like I said, Dimitri Mitchell, Dion Rankin is injured, Niskanen is also injured, but we've got some really quick players on the break, and I think that is probably how we'll look to pick you apart if we can.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, when you look at most managers, I mean, Paul Warne's tried to do it in his tenure here, where you kind of set up based on the opposition, and it's that real talking point for fans. And it's quite interesting to get your viewpoint on this, where having a philosophy that's kind of set in its ways and kind of set in terms of you don't really change depending on who you play in, and you play your game, and that's the way. Or like you've seen in Exeter's instance, where you can kind of change depending on what the opposition are playing in front of you. I mean, what would you say to Derby fans who we've seen it here? What would you say the real benefits that you've seen Gary Caldwell kind of implement for Exeter that doing this chopping and changing can actually bring?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what we've had at Exeter City in the past is similar to what you have in Paul Warne, as in a very sort of strict and regimented way. He has got his way to play, and that's how he wants to play. And he's sort of not stubborn because we don't want to insult anybody, but it is that sense of belief in the way you want to play, which is completely understandable. But I think you also have to. There's compromises in football. No game of football is exactly the same, and if you're not changing the way you play, it sort of becomes easier to play against. In a way, you either have to be a Man City caliber of team to be able to play that way every week and still pick teams apart to really get away with it. So I think for us and the really minimalist squad we've got and not a lot of players, I think chopping and changing suits us perfectly because it allows people to rest. Certain players might not suit certain games. And Gary Caldwell has a lovely saying, which I love. And he always says, we don't have any substitutes. We have starters and we have finishers. And he's really, really big on that. And it's so true. And there's been a couple of occasions this season where people have come on. I think James Scott at Wickham away came on and, he was playing not like a substitute, but as if he had his impact in the game was as a finisher, and he had a real opportunity to show why he should be in the squad. And then in the end, he went on to score in that game. So I think football is beautiful because of opinions. But I think for us right now, that chopping and changing mentality and ethos is perfect for us and the squad we've got.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a little bit earlier, you mentioned the fans are kind of getting now behind it and you're seeing that real bit of togetherness behind Gary Caldwell. I mean, what would you say, going yourself and from the fan base and what you hear week in, week out and social media and stuff, what are you saying that even with the inconsistency and the way it is, just the way the results have gone, would you say that the fans are really behind what's going on right now, although the results might be a little bit stop-start?
Yeah, I think it's really weird to say this about Exeter City because although I'm young and I've seen a lot of the good years, 10 years in League Two respectively, but I've seen a lot of the good times. It's really interesting to see and say that the feel around the place is brilliant. Because, under Paul Tisdale at the end, it became a little bit sour. And Matt did so well to rejuvenate, sort of similar to what Gareth Southgate did with England and re-inspire fans and really drive attendances and made it a place that people wanted to go regardless of the result. We're playing on the front foot football, trying to get at teams. And although it's not like that every week under Gary, people have really taken to the fact that, look, not every week's going to be the same. That's part of the excitement of coming to watch us. And how can we tactically pick apart different teams? I would say that since I can remember, this is the best feel there has been around Exeter City. And I really think if you ask the majority of Exeter City fans, so long as we're in League One, I think we're happy. And I think if we can keep pushing, maybe go up a place or just finish outside the playoffs, or so long as there's slight bits of progression and we're not stagnant for too long, I think City fans, that's all they ask for. And, it wasn't long ago that we may not have even had a football club. So to be talking about us being even challenging for some playoff spots or playing really good football in League One, I think is enough for the fans at the moment. But you know what football fans are like, it changes quickly.
It does. I mean, when you look at the head-to-heads between the two clubs, I mean, last season it was a draw at Pride Park, and then Derby managed to get the victory at Exeter City in April. I mean, would you say a Tuesday night in Derby, under the lights the travel itself is going to be no mean feat for the club and the fans. So any fans that do come to support Exeter, fair play to you. I mean, is that ideal? It wasn't originally meant to be, and when it is, unfortunately, due to rescheduling. But I mean, could that actually play into Derby's hands, just being at home and Exeter having to travel so in the distance?
Yeah, we've got better as a squad over the years, travel wise. I think we've been very. In the past, we've been low on funds, and it's had to be sort of the same day travel. But now, with a little bit more stability at the club, they're maybe not for a Tuesday night game, but on Saturdays, like to Carlisle, which is an absolute mammoth journey for Exeter fans.
Yeah,
I know the players. They did it in 3 days, so they stayed 2 nights, trained on the way up, and sort of split it up that way. Probably not so much for a Tuesday night game, but like you said, players and fans, if there's one thing that you can say at Exeter City is for how far we are from most places, we travel really well. I think, not sure if you were at the game at Pride Park last season, I was, but I think we took about, was it 2,000 or so?
It was a big number, I remember, yeah.
And I think it's fallen this year on the same sort of week.
Same sort of week, it really has, yeah.
Which, and again, there's so many coincidences to this game. Last season was Gary Caldwell's first game, so this will mark almost exactly a year of him being in charge. But no, you're right that City fans are brilliant. They travel so far, and they do travel in good numbers considering the distance and the size of us. But I think it plays into your hands obviously more than us. You got a Tuesday night game where you don't have to travel as far, and I'm not really sure what it is to Derby, 3 hours, maybe a bit more. So that'll probably be one of the players do in sort of the morning and arrive there for the game. So look. Football's weird. It might play into our hands. It might play into your hands. But I think if you were to go off logic, I think it'd probably play into Derby's hands more than ours.
Yeah, I mean, it's not very often. I mean, but Derby at the moment are coming off the back of a break with the international periods. I mean, some clubs in League One don't have that luxury. I mean, when you look at certain individual clubs, they're very lucky to have a game off because of the relentless schedule that is going on. I mean, it'd be very interesting with Shrewsbury and then Exeter, whether that period has paid off, and obviously for you guys going straight into Barnsley to then us at home, it'd be very interesting to see if that has any effect on either team, really.
Yeah, I think we're both fortunate in the fact we've had international breaks. But like you said, I think there's a difference with having an international break with the size of our squad, and there's a difference in having an international break with the size of your squad. And I think and unfortunately for us, we notice it on the bench every week, but the quality of the substitutes just aren't always there, or they aren't always as good as what other teams have, and that's fine. That's part and parcel of being an Exeter City fan. We understand that that's the budget and that's the way it is, but you can't help but deny the facts that that is how it is. And Derby will be bringing on probably players that would be starting for Exeter City most weeks off the bench, and fresh numbers and fresh legs and all that. So the international break has definitely suited both sides, but again, probably playing it more into Derby's hands because I don't think anyone wants to play a fresh Derby squad this season or any season.
No, but I mean, with how inconsistent we've been, and I mean, we struggled to beat Cheltenham away, so we're not rolling over teams. I mean, the team at the moment to catch is Portsmouth, so if anyone's got to compare anyone, it's them. So what I'll do, I'll say we've got 2 games this week for you guys. So if you were going to say positive results or a result in mind for either game, you've got your game at home this week and then us. What would you say would be 2 results that you would say? Either go positive, or would you be realistic? I don't know how you're going to treat this.
No, unfortunately I have to live life as a realist. So I would love to come away from the 2 games with 4 points. I think it's doable. I think we could, probably should, given how Wigan have been playing and the situation that is happening there. We should be beating them, although they've got some great players, and there's no denying that. We that's the kind of game that if we want to be playing at the very top of this division and at the top level, we need to be beating them. And then a point at Pride Park our last season would do me fine.
Well, you did it last year. Let's see if you do it this year. John, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. As I say, with the scheduling, we will yet to see what happens on Saturday. We'll also find out what happens next Tuesday night. If anyone, again, wants to go and listen to your podcast and also listen to any Exeter fans who do tune into this and want to just tune into, obviously, your coverage on BBC Radio, how can they find you?
Yeah, on all your platforms, you get your music or your podcasts. My New Football Club. If you like sort of a less serious, more jokey take on football, and just like sort of a refreshing view on what is a very heavily statistic world, then come listen to My New Football Club.
Brilliant, John. Well, what I'll do, before I let you go, I will pin you down for a score prediction for next Tuesday night. What are you going for, mate?
Well, I hope it's not a score draw or just a boring draw like last season. So let's go for a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw. I will go 1-0 win. I think it won't be easy. Ooh. So I'll go 1-0 win. I've got to go positive because otherwise, if I don't, the lads will rinse me. So I'll go positive. Okay. Brilliant having you on, mate. Look after yourself and obviously safe travels coming up to the game next week. And all the best.
No worries. Thank you.